Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 25th episode of Cultist Simulator, the Librarian Challenge. I did want to give a quick programming note. If I can, I would like to start doing some YouTube videos dedicated for Book of Hours. Some of you have probably been watching the live streams. But one of the drawbacks here, so first of all, the beta cycled into the sort of hibernation mode before I could record any of those videos. So I wanted to try it, but basically baronial ended before I was able to record those. I was actually napping at the time that the update came in. So, you know, these things happen. And it just gives me I'll be able to kind of start fresh with the new patch. But the one thing to keep in mind with those is that they're probably not going to be as regular as these videos. I just don't think I'm going to be able to sustain both sets. But with that in mind, if for whatever reason we end this series before the beta is finished, what I might do is a little bit more of a regular Book of Hours setup. As always, if you are interested one way or the other, if you'd prefer to see more Cultist Simulator, or if you'd like to see a series dedicated to Book of Hours, even if it meant shelving Cultist Simulator for a while, feel free to let me know in the comments. Now, very busy day today, so I'm going to need a minute to review. We were testing something new with our approach to the Forsaken Reach, and if I recall correctly, I had this guess here that I may need to cycle through the items that we get from the Forsaken Reach, and I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember where we were at in terms of the collected items. So I think we're just going to keep hitting that until until we get an indicator one way or another. As for the rest, we're up against Spencer Hobson. We may be able to... they were... Right, actually, I can... there's no indication one way or another in terms of whether we hit them with Dread or Fascination. Both are equally viable. And Connie Lee is working on us, and she is Tenacious. Right, sorry, Mystic and Tenacious. So yeah, both of them are really tough. Fair enough. Nothing to do with study, and we are trying to fix our reputation, but we'll be sending somebody off to destroy the evidence before too long. All right, let's unpause and see where we can go. We've got a Season of Visions coming up, so if I can avoid any fascination, so much the better. We'll see what comes up in a few seconds to decide what we do with this dread. Okay, Season of Ambitions, we can live with that. I'm safe for now. My adversary has not enough evidence to bring a case against me, and they found no new clues. So lucky me there. But no one understands us, or else they understand us too well. So we'll get Leo working on the evidence. We know that they'll be picking up, or well, no, they may be picking up the... No, hang on. They'll only be picking up the notoriety because everything else doesn't survive long enough. All right, save across treacherous ground. We're mud spattered and thorn scratched, but we made it through. We'll add Sylvia when we can to bring our moth up to deal with the Watchers. Now, we were going to the woods, if I recall correctly, because we wanted the occult scraps. We may be running out of them. But I probably went into this in some detail in the previous week. Again, I apologize. It's like I said, it's been a very, very long day for me today. So not necessarily a bad one, but definitely a I don't know, I think challenging might be the wrong way to put it. But I'm very wary. And so I'm definitely not on top of remembering what I covered in the previous episodes. But basically, the hypothesis I'm working with right now is that when they replenish the decks for the repeatable locations, it takes a look at what's available. And so the new assumption I'm operating under is that translating the books will get me another copy of them in the untranslated version. And if it turns out to be that way, then that means that I've got some duplicates that can get me some lore. And if it doesn't turn out to be that way, then I'm going to have some trouble. But we'll see. As for the Mantis, though, we're not going to get the occult scrap that we want. Doesn't really matter one way or the other, but I figure the well might get me some vitality. There we go. So, the well in the wood is sacred to the Grail, the hour that hungers, and to the Velvet, the hour that guards secrets. Tonight as I approached, it heaved with the Velvet's moths, struggling waves of deep and vibrant green pulsing again and again from its throat. It surged around my calves, rose to my thighs, and this morning I still feel the Velvet's breath strong within me. It actually just occurred to me that I may get that copyright problem from letting that video go so long. Well, I guess I'll dispute it, like the last one. Okay, now as much as I'd love to go back to the wood, I do need to deal with my health first. But in the meantime, let's work on the case, heal up, and the dread will go away, so I don't really need to worry about that. So the only thing that's really threatening us. The only thing that's really going to be threatening us in the next little while is not this notoriety, but the notoriety coming from the expedition, and we'll send Leo out to deal with that. Okay, season of suspicion, so hopefully we can keep our nose clean. Rivalry. Here is another who would ascend before me. Independent occultists will try to monopolize the attention of the Hours. They may also conduct other schemes, whether you like it or not. So we'll find out in 15 seconds if I need to worry or not. The Watcher's victory. They are more cunning and more numerous than we'd expected. This will end in blood for us. Optimism is the spice which saves. No new leads, and the sick room grows close and stale. Time to get up. Alright, overall good. We'll see whether or not we need to replace a follower. That would be bad, but... Alright. Cat Caro in this case, so we will survive it. Their wounds are grievous. Heal a fallen follower with talk. Complete the healing of a follower. Perhaps now they'll survive, but there are limits to what the human body can sustain. So this is one of the challenges with the approach that we're taking. We can't bring in summons, so even in the early expeditions, we actually have quite a few more wounds than what you would normally associate with this level of cult. But, you know, we have a specific thing that we're pursuing, so... we'll add the funds now just in case. I suppose the big thing here is that I should be considering the followers I currently have as a... I should be considering it as a kind of the first investment, or the early investment in the ability to summon other things. Alright, through the wood. I walked in the wood last night, and the scissors worked in the distance, and furred things crammed in my mouth and swarmed my ears, and I felt the old urge to drop to wolf wars and nose among the roots. But I remembered that I walk upright by day, and I know fire and steel and words, and at last I found where the velvet had concealed a secret on tree bark beneath moss. I read it then with the tips of my fingers, and I think now that I could write it in full. Okay, so we will head straight back to the wood after that. And unfortunately, we do have dread that we need to deal with. Alright, progress. The constant clatter of closing doors, the damp stains on the station walls, the smell of boot polish, and unwashed constables. All this narrows to a single crystalline truth. I've made progress and earned myself some overtime pay. Now, we've got a free turn coming up. I think what I'm going to do here is... You know what? I want to get rid of the reputation. So I was going to say maybe we do a painting to try and improve my mood, but I'm actually going to follow up on another investigation. I may regret it in 10 seconds, but we'll find out. The Watcher's confusion, their bewilderment is our opportunity. We'll pass in silent secrecy. And we do have a season of despair coming up. The wound is healed, but this one came very close to death. Silence has touched them like snow. So I guess the question here is, do I think that I can generate some contentment? Or do I want to try and... do I want to maybe use the... bring someone... I think in this case we'll bring a hanger-on in. I'm safe for now. My adversary has not enough evidence to bring a case against me, and they found no new clues. So let's bring in a Grail follower. Oh, we're not quite ready for that yet. Night terrors. Slowly, my clenched fists relax. I'll slide back into sleep, but something will remain like spiderwebs in the corner of the room. There we go. Recruit an acquaintance by invoking Knoth. Not my favorite option here, but I'd rather not have to deal with the dread, and we have a few other things that we're working on right now. Treasures lie before us. So again, this is largely about clearing out the Forsaken Reach rather than anything we want on this particular expedition. Although again, if we find a book that we already have, that's certainly very good news. I could use this to paint. All right. Velvet is strong at the well in the wood, and the velvet is the hour that keeps secrets. But now and then she lets a little secret fall, like a crumb at a feast. Last night I found a moss-clad rock written all around with the secrets of another history. But I might give thanks to the velvet, but it would be wiser not to draw her attention. Okay, no new leads. It's actually kind of where we want it. Again, we're not... One of the main reasons why we keep going to the inspector's job, not so much because we need the money, it's more about just not losing the job. Only a little wound, just enough to give homage to the powers that open. So we now have a pawn. This isn't all that important. You know, we're still not going to be able to get up to 10 Grail unless we can recruit Renira, but we work with what we've got, and then we'll send Leo out to bring in, or to deal with our reputation, because we will be opening up some crates that we shouldn't be touching in a little bit. A barred door, a cramped space, a hidden cargo. Season of suspicion coming up, so we should, yes, we will be able to scoop up the notoriety. If we fail at it, though, the Suppression Bureau will definitely pick it up. Alright, the Watchers here were guarding crates sealed with thief-signed ribbons. This was not a lawful operation. The owners of the cargo may not be pleased with our meddling. So, new cracked noonstone, more rose pearl dust, refulgin. There may be a way that I can, like, measure, I guess, 4 Maravine idols will be the indicator that we've cycled through again. But in the meantime, seek out secret places in the city. There are places in the city where I can find extraordinary things if I can sift the clues out of history and rumor. I always thought this was kind of a neat idea too in Cultist Simulator, because like it's not limited to Cultist Simulator, and in fact, Exile goes into this a lot more, but pretty much anywhere you can live. And I say this as somebody in North America, so one of the challenges about North America is that it's new, right? There are places that are very old in North America, but by the standards of, you know, Europe, the Middle East, the Far East, you know, it's all new. But even then, right, there are different things that make the places you live have a certain character. One thing, this is more so appropriate for kind of strategy games that I play, but I live in Ottawa, which was originally kind of a fort called Bytown, named after Colonel By. And like, there's something about Parliament. If you look at it, like, it's the back of Parliament is like, there's this kind of sheer cliff. Now, I'll be honest, I actually don't know the whole, like, positioning in terms of where, you know, certain buildings were and things like that. But you can kind of look at that and say, yeah, that's a pretty, you know, pretty defensible location. I can definitely see this being, you know, the sort of thing that we would, you know, you would, you know, where this, I can see why this might be a place where you would build important buildings if you wanted to, you know, to defend a certain area. But obviously, we don't need to worry about, like, the placement of Ottawa is not necessarily its ability to defend or, you know, move troops to strategically important areas. It's, you know, it serves other purposes now. But again, the fact that it's located where it is quite different than, like, it's there for a different what we get out of it now is different from what the, you know, what its original intention was. And sometimes you'll have, you know, ghost towns which weren't able to make that sort of transition. But the big thing is like, in one case, you've got Europe where, you know, sometimes a place can exist because the Romans thought it was a really useful place for it, and there were roads there. I think there's an economics paper, actually, that determines the effect of having a Roman road on your economic development, which I thought was kind of a neat idea. Sorry, let me pick up. But in the case of Cultist Simulator, even something as simple as an occult scrap, right? So again, I say this as somebody in North America. The idea that, you know, you look close enough, maybe at your local library, or you know, you scratch the surface, you talk to someone who's been around for a while, or maybe you finally check out that house that all the kids say is haunted. I can remember in the places I grew up, there were a couple of places which just, you know, you didn't go there. Like, it was, everybody knew that was a bad place. So far as I can tell, nothing bad had ever happened there, but that was just the place you didn't go. It looked sinister, and you didn't test to see whether or not it would live up to its reputation. And I always kind of liked imagining that the occult scrap was just going one step further with that. The reason why I say that this goes even further with Exile is I believe Weather Factory actually reached out to people for sort of important local, you know, I don't know, lore, stories, history, the sort of stuff you can't find in Wikipedia. And, you know, I think I've been delighted every once in a while I'll see a few references to something mentioned, and it's either somebody who's local or somebody who's been there, and people say, like, I never, you know, I know exactly what they're talking about. You know, they must have done their research or whatever. And the answer is yes, but I also suspect it is because it's from people, it is from local people that create that level of authenticity. So I like that sort of stuff. All right, let's grab the occult scrap. Time the sundial's shadow passes. I must have funds to live or I will become ill. So I've got a season of visions coming up. Optimism is the spice which saves. Okay, so we're in good shape. Place merits closer investigation. Along the gray banks of the rotting river, the warehouses wait. Perhaps I have identified one where an unusual cargo was stored. Okay, once again we go Cat Caro, Pope Clifton, a couple of funds. The law does not touch this decaying fringe of the city. The mud here has claimed many lives, and there will, no doubt, be some wretched criminals or other layering in the warehouse. So we know unless somehow Mystique pops up, we know we'll be safe from this season of suspicion. The well in the wood is sacred to the Grail, the hour that hungers, and to the Velvet, the hour that guards secrets. Tonight as I approached, it heaved with the velvet's moss, struggling waves of deep and vibrant green, pulsing again and again from its throat. It surged round my calves, rose to my thighs, and this morning I still feel the velvet's breath strong within me. So more trips to the wood. We're up on, we're working on our fourth, but basically we'll say four Forsaken Reaches available to us, which I believe is 12 items in total, so that should be sufficient for figuring out whether or not we're going to be able to get the texts we need, but better to just have it in hand and rather than speculate, so we're going to push ahead. I may even be tempted to speed things up, although again, there's always the danger that I make a mistake. Okay, another season of Visions coming up. We call upon the Watchman who navigates. Okay, no use for the peculiar rumor. Well, 2 peculiar rumors. So many things rise from the well in the wood. Last night it was a swarm with wormy roots. The trees clustered and whispered. Perhaps they were welcoming the influx. I found a sleeping soul ensnared in the roots, and I helped them struggle free. When they wake, they will recall my face, as I do theirs. Okay, again, happy to have no new leads, mostly just because I don't know if it all, so it definitely feels like when we make progress on the investigation, that tends to be when the bad things happen. I don't know if that's strictly how it goes on, but I don't know. I've made the connection enough times that, okay, save across treacherous ground. Season of Ambition's coming up, so we want to keep an eye on Renira. We're mud spattered and thorn scratched, but we made it through. But yeah, until I get a Night Terrors off of if I get a Night Terrors off of a no progress one, then I'll know better. But for now we'll stick with that story. The Velvet is strong at the well in the wood, and the Velvet is the hour that keeps secrets. But now and then she lets a little secret fall, like a crumb at a feast. Last night I found a moss-clad rock written all around with the secrets of another history. I might give thanks to the Velvet, but it will be wiser not to draw her attention. Okay, so we have a usual batch of tasks to perform. Phoning it at work. Powerful deception. Look closer. Closer still. Closer. Keep looking. Closer. Now close your eyes. Looks like somebody is in Renira's crosshairs. Yeah, it'll work itself out. And another season of Ambitions, which I think will probably translate into me needing to employ some reason. So I will avoid speeding things up until I have some certainty there. The Watcher's confusion, their bewilderment is our opportunity, will pass in silent secrecy. A scheme to murder a hunter is afoot. A rival intends to end a hunter. This may be to my advantage, but it may also draw attention. So we are going to bring a heart follower in to deal with that. We're not going to do that right away. Through the wood. The well in the wood is never dry, but it is never clear. One night it might heave with crawling roots. On another it will pulse with bright moss. On nights of the full moon its waters are choked with the fat dappled bodies of moths. Last night I saw it brimming with dark and viscous blood. Gelatinous shreds drifted on its surface, clots of grail matter. Okay. So we'll wait for the Season of Ambitions to pop up and for me to put my reason in, and then I will... Then I'll feel a little bit better about speeding things up. There we go. The scent of the pages. What hungers drive me? I cannot forget what I saw in the file on Ivan Vucetich. I am discipline. I am all discipline. I haven't lasted this long to give up so easily. Delayed delivery. A barred door, a cramped space, a hidden cargo. Alright, let's get Leo on the notoriety. There's going to be 2 that pop up roughly around the same time, but at this point we know we're not going to be wasting his time. And another occult scrap. I walked in the wood last night, and the scissors worked in the distance, and furred things crammed in my mouth and swarmed my ears, and I felt the old urge to drop to wolf fours and nose among the roots. But I remembered that I walk upright by day, and I know fire and steel and words, and at last I found where the velvet had concealed a secret on tree bark beneath moss. I read it then with the tips of my fingers, and I think now that I could write it in full. And progress. So, extra money for us. We didn't get any nightmares, so overall, good news. Okay, Season of Suspicion coming up, so I think it's most likely that we're going to get hit with the notoriety, but the Watchers were guarding crates sealed with thief-signed ribbons. This was not a lawful operation. The owners of the cargo may not be pleased with our meddling. So, a vital pigment. There's the Maravine idol, so I'm going to need to find a better measure of duplication. I guess a 4th piebald pigment now? Actually, I may have a note on that. What? Sorry, I just saw something that doesn't make any sense. Okay, here we go. Oh, nuts. I got rid of the stuff that that isn't a book. Okay, well, that's something for us to keep an eye on. Old and happy far off things, so I'll just use a painting on that, I think, especially because we already have the Season of Suspicion coming up, so, you know, the mystique is the mystique. We'll seek out another secret place in the city. Some days are better than others. Sometimes the sky is nothing like a filthy sheet. Sometimes the river runs clear. So we're getting close to the end of our time together, but I'll get the last minute of activity. If nothing else, we can set up the painting. The temptation is past for now. I'm also slightly curious about the outcome. A half-glimpse wistfulness has touched me. This may ultimately bring the Suppression Bureau to my door. Okay. So I think the best I can do here is just kind of delay the inevitable with a painting. Okay, we made progress. So I think what I'm going to try here, this probably doesn't make too much sense, but I'm going to give this the absolute last second. So we've got 41 seconds here. The important thing to remember is that the the Bureau doesn't pick up the evidence right away, so we've got 9.6 seconds before this becomes a thing. Follow up with the Forsaken Reach. So I think here it's most likely we're still going to get hit by the investigation, but we'll have enough. I guess there's nothing else for me to employ in the painting. Oh, you know what? For 25 seconds, we do actually give them the slip. Haha, I planned it that way all along. There's really no reason to spend money on the paints, but at this point I have such a ridiculous amount of money, it doesn't really matter. So if a hunter has found notoriety, they will try to use it to create or upgrade evidence. If they're meticulous, they'll always succeed. If they're erratic, they're more likely to fail, but they can occasionally create evidence even without notoriety. Okay, I think we'll go to maybe the ending of the painting and then call it. Okay, season of sickness coming up, so let's pick up heavy things and put them down again. We got some money out of that, some glimmering contentment, although I don't really need it. Some extra mystique, which is going to mess things up with Leo. No staleness. And we get to keep our job. All right, so not a bad little run. The only real thing here is we are sort of dragging our feet in terms of the Forsaken Reach. We still need to see whether or not my working theory is a valid one. But at this point, really all that we can do is to keep doing those expeditions and see if they turn up anything. If they do, that's good news for us. That's actually going to have implications not just for the capital, but for the shires and such. But again, it's something I want to verify before I invest too heavily in one approach or another. Especially because, I don't think we're going to run into the same problem as Oriflamme's, but I do feel like this is one of these... This would be one of the times or one of the runs where I would really like to avoid having to start things over again because I've invested so much. Like, if I have to, I will. It's a little bit like, doing the Exile and, resulting in one of the, the less friendly endings, let's say. These things can happen. It's part of the game, right? Like, you have to accept the losses along with the wins. But, it would be nice 20-something episodes in not to have to start from the very beginning. Although if we do, we also know that we can save ourselves some time with the Forsaken Reach by taking a slightly different approach. But as always, we will find out in a future episode. This should be Monday's episode, so I will not be back until Wednesday. But thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in a couple days. Take care.